the tab which is part of ActionBar. So we added a tab to our main activity, and we were working on creating two fragments. One fragment which contains a list view, another fragment contains a compose boxes. So I was working on it. So let me see where I'm right now. So I have two tab, and a tab has a event listener called tab listener, and that method has got implemented. Looks fine. Okay. So let me close all. So I have one fragment which is created already, and if you need a better understanding on the life cycle of a fragment, you can implement these methods. Important method being on attach. So remember, on attach gives you the host activity instance also. I'm talking as a host activity, mean a fragment is hosted on the activity, like the main activity behaves as if a wrapper, and inside a fragment find a place. A fragment has its life cycle starts from on attach to on detach. And very important life cycle of a fragment, if you want to say, I can describe on create view, because which is the place where I can start inflating the layout and have the widgets initialized. If you want to have additional initialization, for example, not limited to UI, you can do that in on create, and rest of the methods are just on activity created, which confirms the view has got created successfully, and uh, the particular create of an activity is also loaded, and on start on resume up to the fragment lifecycle move on and stop there. When fragment about to get either closed or paused, uh, these two methods may be called, and again it may move to on resume if it is again brought into foreground. Otherwise, if it is reaching to a termination, it will go to on destroy view, and finally on detach. It will get detached from the UI thread itself. So you can put a console log statement and see how the fragment lifecycle works. But I would say the most important method which you may consider implementing is on attach and on create view. The rest depends on, for example, on detach you can also implement it. It looks like a destructor, or where you can take a step to uh, I mean nullify the object if you have anything initialized. So rest of the methods are optionals, and whatever we wrote before in activity, we are going to write it here inside the fragment. SMSList view, which I'm planning to display a list view, uh, maybe kind of a title which is to be displayed, uh, a compose box where I can compose the title and the content, and I have and finally have the list view populated based on the content entered in the compose box. And this should be added with the database, but since our scope of this particular exercise to understand fragment, I'm not going to add any database or any persistent layout. Only for better understanding of fragment, we are going to see how I can handle the fragment and with the pager in what we call ViewPager, and also how to handle the tab listening and manage the data between two fragments, and how we are going to handle them. So those things we are going to we are going to have it done. So let me have a data ready for this. I can say private I prefer to have a hash map based array list. So you may be identifying which adapter I'm going to use it here. initialize. You want to initialize here, you can do it. Let me preload some items. So I'm going to need a key value pairs. So I'll define it here itself. Okay, whatever. Some message and add it to array list. This is pretty familiar, you have already done. I'm just preloading it. Something. Okay, let it be. Two messages I have composed. I'm going to display them in a list view. Since it's a hash map of array list, so simple adapter, I'm going to use it. Context, there is a method called getActivity where I can get a context directly instead of having something initialized and having the copy here, because onAttach will already invoke the instance of an activity. So I'm using getActivity. Otherwise, if you want to call it through this one, yes, of course you can do. The data, in this case, SMS messages, resource. I'm going to pick something from my Android template library instead of doing something from my own. Simple list item, single choice. I'm going to put a radio button also. Of course, you can do similar layouts from. So I need a array of string. I'm going to display title alone. I'm not going to display the message. This is an integer array. Usually text1 is given for text1, text2 if at all this particular template is going to contain any text view. So in this case, remember, I'm calling everything from Android dot, because it is Android template library. You can find the source code or this particular layout by checking your Android installation path, platform, data, resource, and you can find this layout inside the layout folder. So SMSList view, set adapter. This adapter has been set. Okay. Now, first thing, I need to go ahead and display this fragment before doing anything, and then we will see what kind of challenge we are going to see. The activity main is containing a view pager, which I copied from the previous example. Now the view pager is it's invoked from the support library, which is going to load your views and is going to paginate. So as of now, I've created only one fragment. I will create the another one. Before, I want to make sure that particular fragment itself displays or not. Right now my emulator is simply showing an empty view, nothing is there. Okay. Let me initialize. Given the ID, I have given the ID pager here, so okay. I need an adapter to display these views, and also I'm going to have the fragment also initialized. The fragment name is SMSList. I'm giving it as a global one. I'll let you know why I need this as a global one. And time to initialize it. So let me create a pager adapter. So these are all things I did in the last exercise already. That's why I'm slightly going faster. Say my view page adapter, some name, extends. What is that? Sim. Name fragment state pager adapter. Yeah. Make sure the fragment everything implemented as a support through the support library. Constructor and unimplemented methods. So there's going to be two views, but right now I had to create the another fragment, so I'm going to keep only one to test how many fragment you want to display. Make the number accordingly. But right now I have two tabs, but of course only one fragment is ready for me. So I have to do something here. This R0 instead. We'll keep it position. The first fragment, I'm going to return the SMS list. This guy is showing some error, but let me see what is the error. My fragment is not from the support library, so I need to call the right one. Okay, now it went away. So this should attach, of course, pager set adapter. So I'm setting an adapter which is going to load the very first fragment called SMSList, which has got initialized here. Make sure you follow the hierarchy. Okay, run this. Okay. If you notice, list has got the very first fragment has got loaded, and if you notice, see there is a radio button. So this is actually a template for Listview, which we called here simple list item single choice, so that one single choice can be maintained at a time. But I'm not ready there, so nothing gets selected. In order to achieve that, I need to slightly modify the behavior of a list view. Set choice mode. I need to give a choice mode single. Then it will accept the input. I think we got it wrong. Now I can toggle between a different choice. If you want to have the first item to be selected by default, you can give a set let me find it. I forgot that the appropriate set selection. I'm looking for the one which has two arguments. Set item checked. I want to select the 0 position as checked one. True mean it will have it. The very 0 mean the index. I mean the very first item index 0, and we'll make sure the item has got selected by default when it is loaded. Sorry. So this item has got selected by default. So I can toggle between them. Of course, I can add various new items, and I can toggle between them. Right now there is no swipe because only one fragment has got added, and of course that fragment doesn't synchronize with the tab as of now, because the tab should make sure the respective view also loaded, and of course the swipe also should be supported. In order to make the swipe working, I need another fragment. Maybe I can give a name, compose something. Extends fragment. Make sure that support library is called. Okay. Maybe I need a attach on create view is enough for me. Yeah.
So a small help we need for
Yeah,
the process. We are using JSP as a front end and back end is an SQL. What it is, the JSP, once when you click log out and then you click the back button, it's going to the previous page, which we don't have, and we need to show that the session is expired.
Okay. Are you using any sessions or
no?
Okay. So because the login logout, how you are handling it?
Yes, we have that.
You should have a session, right?
Yeah, we have inside servlet. We have that session timeout and all those. We have that. It goes back to that page, and
Are
if
you
we
using
click or
any?
do something in that
Are you
page,
using any what they call
struts framework.
you're using struts?
Yes.
Okay, but session management, page redirect or anything you are using?
Page. We use this action support class with the servlets only. We are doing the
Routing.
Yeah, whichever page it has to go.
Okay. So better if I see the code would be fine.
It's in the PC base.
I know.
Would you be able to come for now?
I need to see this thing I have finished. When is your last?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow evening.
You guys will come away very
We
close
started
time.
only
You know,
last
the
week.
other batch also came like that only.
Okay.
Let me see. I'll just finish.
Yes, sir.
And then,
Now see if it's possible after 6.
yeah, let me see. But if you need to see the code tomorrow, do you have a review? You're going there.
No, we have review.
We'll be leaving, but the other people in my team, they'll be representing this project.
So, I mean, you need to view the entire, or you just need to view the logout page or what?
Okay, I'll come and see. Okay.
Because if it's possible to have a piece of code,
Actually,
we'll put
we
in Outlook
had
and we'll show
searched
it.
online.
Yeah,
so-
that if you could do it, because especially I want to see that how the logout is happening on a session. What kind of session and how you are using. If you are using struts has a built-in way to
Session
handle
aware
it.
class.
Yeah.
Huh.
So I want to see that. Is there? Just snippet if I know, I can forward some other code so that
We searched online and we got some 6 lines of code, sir. In that it was given like which page it has to go. When you click the back button, it has to go to the home page. So that thing we are filling correctly. There's another thing, some underscore token like that it was given. In that place, what we are supposed to fill, that we don't know, sir. Because if we know that, then we
username
can
and password be given. So the user will be active for the particular session. Once the session is expired, I mean, when you click the logout button, session will
yeah,
expire.
I want to see whether the session has been completely killed or not. If the session is not killed, naturally it will
Actually,
not
if we click the back button, it goes to that page. But if we do any actions in that, exception occurs.
Okay. So it goes, but if you try to do something,
The exception occurs.
okay, I'll come and see.
Sure.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so this one is going to display the compose. Of course, that layout we have already created. So let me see this one. This one I created in the morning session. So I have 2 edit text and 1 button. And this thing I have to initialize here. So usual step like sorry, a view or view group or whatever. Inflate dot layout dot compose fragment. The parent is going to be the container which is hosting, and we are not attaching to the root, so setting fast and sorry. That's it. We'll initialize if at all required. Maybe the edit text and other stuff I initialize, but I want to make sure the fragment is loaded properly. So I'm going to go. I'm going to the hosted I mean the activity which is hosting the fragment. I have created another fragment now. What's the name again? Compose, I remember. Okay. Else I have added, so I don't need this written block. So the very first tab will display this one. So not tab. The first view is this SMSList fragment. The second one is going to be the compose. Now that we have 2 views, I'm going to make a 2. So my adapter will load 2 fragments same time. So now I can swipe and get a different view because the 2 fragments I have loaded inside the what you call ViewPager. I would like to ask one question here. I already told you I have a slightly different life cycle for fragment. So in this case, how many fragment has got loaded? Can you tell me? One. Then here actually two fragments have been loaded already. One is visible, another is not visible. That's the only thing you need to understand. Both the fragments have been loaded. So both would have called on attach and whatever the on create view, everything. But the difference is one fragment is right now displaying. Another fragment, because it's a horizontal one, the view is not visible. So that fragment is still there and it is not visible. So two fragment has got loaded because this adapter has a built-in iterator inside loaded both the fragments. So if you have a fragment lifecycle defined in console, you will see both the fragment has got loaded. Maybe one by one, of course, but both fragments have been loaded. Now I need to synchronize this fragment with the tab, because see, this tab is not connected with this, and I need to link them. So let me see. Already I have a tab listener which listens tab selection. So where's this one? On tab selector, this is important. I need to handle the ViewPager event along with that, so I'm making the ViewPager as a global. So when tab is selected, set current item 2 position. So based on the tab, the pager will load the pager will move to a particular fragment. So now if I see, I'm selecting the tab, the pager automatically moves to the respective activity. But we are not there yet. This view is not, the pager is not synchronizing with the tab, whereas this one is perfect. Let me see what I can do. I can attach a pager set on page change listener. It also has an event listener. On page change listener, okay, slightly a lot of abstract methods are there, but we are only worried about the one. We only require the on page selected. So which page is right now being selected, or which page is right now visible. So I'm going to make this as a position, so for better understanding. The rest is scroll and scroll change, that's we are not going to be worried about it. So this pager and the action bar should get synchronized. Action bar is not global, so I need to make the set selected navigation item set to position. So the action bar will automatically change its position when if you swipe and move to a different fragment. This one certainly doesn't load. Oh. Okay, now installing. Now if I swipe, see the tab is also making the right selection. If I swipe to the first one, automatically the tab has got moved. and of course I can use this, this one also. You can add as many as fragment, that many tab also you can keep it. So right now I have only 2, so both the fragments have got loaded. And my next thing is I will go to compose and compose a message, and when I click save, it should populate another item here. So that's a requirement. In this case, the 2 fragment has to talk each other. Mean this guy, something will enter, that data should reach here and upload it. It's not going to be much complicated because both are right now as objects in a single activity itself. These both the fragments, for example, SMSList and compose, are actually very well located inside the host activity itself. So we are not going to be worried about much. We don't need an intent to do just because it is not in a different process. Both the fragments are located, very well located in the same activity itself. So it's just an object. So how I am going to handle it? There are various ways to handle the data between them. Easiest one is also there, but I would recommend something a professional way so that the code could become much more modular. So you can load one single fragment or multiple fragment in a same activity or different activity also. Let me tell you the very easiest one first. So I need to go to compose. Let me initialize. I have 2 edit texts there. So sorry. I have given the ID title. ID message. Okay. And also I have a button just showing as a save. The event listener for the button, set on click listener. Various ways, you know already how to have an event listener for a button. You can implement it over here on click listener, or you can have it as a separate event listener. Both is fine. So you got it. I'm using a on click listener implementation, so it could be set to this. So anytime the button gets clicked, this particular method will be called. Of course I need to make the title and message as a global. Now this one should update the title, and the message should go to the SMSList fragment, and it should modify this particular array list and have the adapter updated. If you notice, the scope of this SMS message is array list is not public, so I cannot access it from inside. Or if you want to make it public, this is not a recommended way, but I'm still showing you for the easiest one. Okay, I don't want to keep it public, let it be. I'll put a setter getter required because that's the easiest way to encapsulate. going to have a setter getter method. These two methods. Okay, so this will give me access to the SMS message content, and that will set it. When a new SMS array list is received, I can update the adapter, so making the adapter also global here. Notify data set changed. So the adapter will get refreshed. So we have already have get SMS. Okay. My main activity name is main activity. Going to give already I told you get activity is a method is available. This will give an instance of your host activity. In the host activity, you already have a SMS what's that name I gave? I don't remember. It is still private. I'm making it public. Go ahead and make it public. SMSList. So first I'll get the existing array list. SMSList get SMS messages. Now build a hash map. Add a new item. The key is title. Get text to string. The one the user has just typed, and put message. And finally attach it to the SMS messages. Add map. When everything is done, make sure you call activity SMSList set SMS message like this one, and empty your clearer so that the value will be added and cleared for next input. See, I am accessing the another fragment from this fragment. So this fragment name is compose, but whereas it is accessing the another fragment called SMSList through the activity, because that activity which is hosting the another fragment, through that I am accessing that another fragment and its inner methods if it is publicly defined. So I can communicate this way. It's a standard Java practice, nothing to do with Android or process or anything associate. So I can simply handle them, but I would say this is not a very professional way, but it doesn't involve much technique. It's pretty straightforward because this SMS list is a public object. So the instance of an activity gives uh, access to this object and its inner methods. So in this case, I'm going to run this. Don't know whether it worked or not. So I'm going to compose. Something I click. Of course, it did not move, but let me come and see. A new entry has got added here. So I can go here and compose. Mm, so then additional entry has got added. In this case, both the fragments talk to each other. This is one of a way. But the problem here may be when you have your code logic separated, this fragment is depending on the main activity. You mean this fragment cannot work without this main activity. We have to make a code which independently works with any kind of activity which it gets attached. But particular logic of this code, it always depends on the main activity. It means right now main activity is hosting this compose fragment. In my same application, I will create one more activity there. The same fragment can also be hosted, but that time the code won't work. The reason is this code is made to work with only a main activity when it is getting hosted. So that's the limitation it has. So a better way, probably, instead of doing this one, there is a one more way to handle that task as well. I can have a interface to handle the job instead of this one. So if I have an interface, anyone get attached to that interface will have the fragment also loaded accordingly and behave and work with any kind of activity where it is hosted. Maybe that one I can do it for this fragment. I'm going to need a help of an interface which is going to bridge or going to handle the callbacks between the hosted activity and the fragment. So both the fragment will report to a activity, and then activity through that the object will be transferred and would be maintained, or any kind of transformation should happen, it can do it. Let me create a interface class. Say handle callback, some name I'm giving. It's an interface, so only abstract methods are allowed. On I don't want a reserved word, so some method I am writing. So this is a simple callback method, a normal interface which has one abstract method. So how I'm going to make use of this particular interface to talk between the activity and the fragment. First thing, go into SMSList, just declare. It is just a declaration I need to initialize. Initializing can be here. Before I want to make sure that particular interface is implemented, activity is instance of it means the hosted activity contains an instance of handled callback. It will verify. If it contains, then I need to typecast it. It will initialize the handle callback method, I mean the particular class. In order to make this working, I need to go to MainActivity. I need to implement handle callback. The moment this interface gets implemented, you need a place to have the particular abstract method to be implemented, and that method is finally added on SMS message selected. So now this part will be true because the hosted activity already contains the handle callback instance implemented over there. Now I'm going to have a adapter set on item click listener. Whenever an item is clicked, it will report to a main activity in this way. This particular method. It means on SMS message has got implemented in main activity. So this will call this method. So I'm going to put a post something. Remember, this method is implemented in main activity, which is hosting your fragments. Whereas this particular fragment is reporting the event listeners to one of an interface called handle callback. The same interface has got implemented here, so naturally it will receive the callback in this method. Excuse me. Hello. Hello. சொல்லுங்க. ஏஎஸ்வி சன்டெக் பார்க் உங்களுக்கு அந்த மேட்டுக்குப்பம் பஸ் ஸ்டாப் ஆப்போசிட்டில், அது அந்த பஸ் ஸ்டாப் பக்கத்துலேயே இருக்குது. நீங்கள் மேட்டுக்குப்பம் பஸ் ஸ்டாப் வாங்க, உங்களுக்கு தெரிஞ்சிடும், பார்த்தாலே தெரிஞ்சிடும். ஆமாம், ஏஎஸ்வி சன்டெக் பார்க். நீங்கள் அங்கே வந்து எனக்கு கூப்பிடுங்க. ஓகே. whenever a list item is getting clicked, this callback method will be called. I hope this is going to be slightly tricky for you if you haven't worked with the interfaces. This particular interface has been created in order to handle the callbacks between two different classes. If you notice, when a list item is getting clicked, it reports to the main activity. And if you notice here, this particular fragment, nowhere we mention the name main activity. So this fragment can independently work with any activity where it get attached. The only requirement is that particular activity should have a handle callback class implemented. So this case, it has a handle callback class implemented. So this SMS list reports any event listening to this particular view. In fact, I can even modify so signature has got changed, so I need to modify that. So it can also bring data from the fragment and it can report it to a hosting activity. In this case, so any item I click which reporting to a hosted activity. This is the right way to do, instead of maybe a slightly roundabout way to have event listeners, interfaces to handle the callback, but that makes the fragment much more independent. Whereas if you notice this fragment, there is no callback, it still works, it directly accesses the data of a second fragment. But this guy is already limited to this main activity. Hello. ஒரு few minutes வரேன் actually. So this way may not be advisable. You have to have a dependency over interface, then make the fragment entirely independent so that you can load one fragment or do not load another fragment or load multiple fragment without having any dependency over the particular activity. If you notice, this main activity, if instead of some other activity comes, this particular fragment itself will fail. But it is slightly a very easy way of accessing it. Whereas this is slightly roundabout way, but using the interface callback method, make sure the particular fragment is completely become independent and it can get attached to any activity. The only requirement, the hosted activity should have a callback called this interface, in this case handle callback, and I can completely encapsulate my fragments and restrict within the activity itself. I don't need to have it as a public methods, it can be a private one. So both the way I have implemented. The next exercise, I have to attach the edit and delete option, and of course I need to attach it with the database, and finally broadcast receiver and SMS replier will start working. So today's simple example, what we have seen is a simple tab view, or looking like a tab, and view pager. Along with that, two different view or two different fragments have been loaded inside the view pager, and both the fragments interact with each other, the second fragment interact with the first fragment directly, whereas this particular fragment reports everything to the hosted activity, and it's up to the hosted activity to handle the callback or send it to some other uh, fragment. The later way is recommended, even though it is roundabout way, but since there are number of ways also available, if your code does not require that much expandability, you can very well have the previous one and directly access the object of the another fragment. So this is one simple example. The benefit of having a fragment: keep your code much more clean and have your logics defined in a different classes instead of everything writing on the activity itself. I can separate the logic, and I can load one or more fragments depending on the availability or depending on the size of the screen, and I can easily have a data transmission or data handling between the fragment by reporting to hosted activity using some callback feature. So the callback is nothing but having an interface. Interface means a connector, something which connects using a method callbacks. So we have created one simple interface. That interface has just one single method. So anyone who implement this interface should have this particular method implemented. In this case, MainActivity has the particular interface implemented. And in SMS, I am checking whether the hosted activity contains the instance of the interface. If it is there, it will initialize that object which is defined locally, and it can call one of a abstract method and pass that value. Remember, it just passing the value, nowhere the method has got implemented. So interfaces are useful if you have to handle the callbacks between two different independent segments, and in this case I have used that as well. So we are into a fragment discussion, right now we are learning about fragment. Right now I loaded the fragment through runtime, meaning a fragment was created entirely in Java side, and view was inflated using layout inflator. There is a way to define a fragment directly in a XML, or I can create a fragment holder or some empty holder. I can create the fragment in runtime and attach to it. So there are various ways to handle the fragments. One such a way we have seen it now. The second one, I may use a frame layout. Frame layout, of course, we haven't seen, so I can use that as one of example. Frame layout, nothing but it's going to host. A frame layout can display only one view at a time. It's like a photo frame. So if you put a photo on the frame, naturally the photo displays. If you put another photo, naturally the existing photo will disappear and the other photo will be displayed. So it's a stack. So like that I can use the frame layout also to host my fragment. So that example also I'm going to see. And finally, how to handle different view using fragment in landscape and portrait mode. So portrait will be slightly in detail, two fragments, whereas in landscape, two fragments can be loaded because the device is slightly the width is slightly higher. Whereas in portrait, only one fragment will be visible, the second fragment won't be visible. So I can do various things with the help of a fragment, and I can effectively handle the available screen space. So we have just started it. Anyway, I'll upload the source code and videos. I know I need to give you a sufficient time to get yourself comfortable with the fragments. So tomorrow I'll give enough time. I hope there is no disturbance afterwards, no session. That's what you call behavior and all these things. So you can completely dedicate on the fragment and other exercises.